Okay, my internet is very bad, and streaming from Xbox to Twitch is very suboptimal, so my stream just ended itself. I'm going to pick up where I left off. So, I was talking about. Uh, okay. FromSoft. FromSoft didn't realize how much of a change the open world would have on that whole finding NPCs thing again and remembering where they are and forgetting where an NPC was became a lot more common. So they decided to add a system that marks the locations of NPCs you have already found. It does not help you find them in the first place. There are some things that could be better or would be nice, admittedly. And I'm gonna get into some like ideas, some things similar to what you said, but also like go a little bit more into depth of how I think they should work if they were implemented. So there are some cases of NPCs telling you to go do something and giving you absolutely no hints as to where they are, and I think that isn't great. So there's this guy, the vampire-looking guy named Dialos, tells you to go find someone but gives you absolutely no hint as to where they may be. I think having a little journal, important stuff is noted down would be nice. Say Dialos told you to go find his servant Lanya. He gives you a little hint as to where she is or as to where he plans to go once he departs the round table, because he does do that later on. He's kind of just gone from my round table right now. I have no idea where he is. Your character would have a note in the menu saying something along the lines of, Dialos told me to keep an eye out for his servant Lanya. He said he last saw her in Liurnia. I should look around a little harder if I find myself there along my journeys. Like, that would be the quote. But that's not a thing in the game, sadly. Just a little, like, hey, here's that thing this person said, and he doesn't even say it. But I want to also say there are some examples of it being done right. There's a NPC called Sorceress Selin who tells you to go find someone named Master Lusat, and if you talk to her, she will tell you he is somewhere in Celia in the Kalid Wilds and gives you a key. The dialogue for a hint on his location is repeatable. Its label is read "Lead on Lusat." This is a great example of how to do this properly, because she actually gives you a hint as to where to start looking and where to expect to find him, and she gives you a key saying, hey, there's a locked door in this general area of the map. Go find this guy named Lusat. He's another sorcerer like me. He was cast out of Raya Lucaria like me. I haven't found him exactly. I haven't gone down that quest line, but he's somewhere there. And here, actually, is a great example of what I was saying about the NPC markers earlier. If it just told you where the next NPC in the quest line was, or where NPCs you hadn't found are, I would see a marker saying Lusat is here, somewhere. But I don't. There's Millicent. That's not Lusat. There's Sage Gowry. That's not Lusat. So, yeah, it only tells you where people you already found are. It was very good timing for a great example of that. Now, I think this is also another problem with like the way it is with the open world and stuff, because in previous titles by FromSoft, NPCs would do a similar thing, but the game was much smaller and less open, and it was a lot easier to fully explore an area and not miss things. So if someone said, keep an eye out for this person, it was more likely than not that you would bump into that person along the way, whether you were looking or not, or whether they gave you a hint or not. It was just kind of inevitable, because the maps were fairly tight if you were going through them. Unless someone was hidden away in a way that was intentional that you would miss it, you would run into them. And I think a little bit of that was lost in the open world system that they have now. So, because it took a lot less and it was a lot easier to fully explore an area and not miss things. If someone said keep an eye out for this person, it was more likely than not you would bump into that person along the way, so giving hints was not really necessary, though it was still done at times. I'm pretty sure this is From's first time doing an open world game like this, so it's understandable that these mistakes would be made, if a little unfortunate. And these markers are them, like, fixing that mistake in a lot of ways, but not so much the finding the next person, more just keeping track of where the people you've already found are, which is a very nice thing, because people are going to be Googling that anyway. And, okay, here's a big one. One point you said many times, you repeated this multiple times throughout your video, is that you wanted them to give you just enough story to get you interested, or to let you know that it was even there. Multiple things with that. They do, for one, and for two, just enough to get you interested will be different for everyone. So I'm going to read out the exact thing I wrote down, this blurb. You keep saying just enough to get you interested, but what counts as that will be different for everyone. For some people, like me, all that needs to be is knowing that there is a story, which is fairly obvious from the get-go. And unless it's something like Jump King, you know there's probably going to be a story, especially in a big release like this. For some people, they will want a little bit more. The game gives you a little bit more. A little bit more like what the game gives you at start. For people like you, there needs to be a little bit more than even that. I'm not sure how much more, but more. And for other people, what was enough for you wouldn't be enough for them. And for others, they literally need to be force-fed it to care. Just enough to get the player interested is different for every single player. The game doesn't need to make you care. You need to choose to care. That is a decision you have to make. The game shouldn't need to make you care. And all of that, if you're someone who cares about story in games, or would be interested at any point, knowing that the game has a story should be all there needs to be for you to get interested and start paying attention to it. If you don't care, you don't care, and if you do, you do, and that's just that. The game doesn't need to make you care. If you care so little that you skip NPC dialogue or cutscenes, then you can't complain about missing out on the story. For example, you said your friend was in New Game Plus. Your video came out a mere 2 weeks after Elden Ring came out. Asterisk thing. Actually, never mind. I just checked, and that was actually almost 4 weeks ago. A 4-week difference between the video and the game releasing. I lost track. I turned my phone sideways. Okay. Certainly felt a lot. It certainly felt like a lot shorter time. It felt like 2 weeks. Apparently, it's been actually 4 between the game releasing and you uploading that video. But I'm still going to read out this next part because I still feel like my point is somewhat valid. Elden Ring is not a short game. I don't know if that guy has a job or school. If not, he has a lot more time than me because I have both. But I'm 80 hours in and I've only beaten 3 Shardbearers. Him being that far in that short an amount of time tells me he basically was straight-lining it to the end of the game every playthrough, which feels to me like someone complaining they didn't understand a book and then telling you they read it 3 times, but every time they read it, they skipped every 3rd chapter. Your exact words in the video were, "The thing that was lacking for me was the essential story or enough of the story that you..." Okay. The thing that was lacking for me was the essential story, or enough of the story that you need to know to be invested. You want to know how to be invested, and to want to know how it concludes. If you do not have that in a story, the reader will just turn off. That's what you said. Those are the exact words you said. And I repeat that they do give you that. They do give you enough to get you interested, and if what the game gave you wasn't enough for you, that was your decision to not care enough at that point. Because the game told you that the story existed, it gave you little hints as to what was this and what was that. That first cutscene talked about, oh, the dung eaters and the deathbed companions. What your brain should have been doing at that moment was, what are those? And if you care about story, the next thing would be, I am going to try and find out. So, as you go through the game, you'll keep an eye out for stuff related to those things. And, kind of a go back to the, thing about him being in New Game Plus 3, and also my next blurb. It's an adventure game, an open-world adventure game. You keep saying if you go in a straight path, you'll miss this and that. Yeah, because you're not supposed to play that way. If you go in a straight path in Skyrim, you'll miss a whole ton of stuff. Same for The Witcher 3. I believe not certain, though, that you can straight up miss, like, a pivotal, super important character in the story. I think she probably does actually show up later if you don't do this quest line, but you can meet her a lot earlier on in a side quest. Triss Marigold in The Witcher 3. You first meet her in a side quest, and I don't know if that means she never shows up in the story if you don't meet her in that side quest, or if she shows up later on, but either way, that's a pretty big thing to miss for a good bit of the game. And, heck, Breath of the Wild, another open-world adventure game. You practically got no story at all in that game other than Ganon bad, go kill. If you don't do the Divine Beasts and explore to these far edges of the maps that have random books in a random building that tell you some lore stuff, that's really all you get. Ganon bad, go kill. Because all of the lore is in the exploration of the game. And there's some very obvious things, like go kill the Divine Beast Varuta, go to this village, I don't know what it's placed, but it's the village full of chickens. And there's a lot of lore in the game, but it tells you practically nothing at the start, other than, oh, you've been asleep for 100 years. Ganon brought the world to ruin, and he's bad. Go kill him. And you can go straight to the final boss fight and kill him, the game will end, and that's basically that. There's pretty much no lore or story there. Is that bad because it didn't want to tell you about the story and lore? Not really. Speaking of story and lore, one thing I noticed in your video is you kind of used story and lore interchangeably in a way. You probably already know this. You write books, and maybe this is just a game thing. I don't know. But there is a difference between story and lore. I'm going to describe it in my own words and then also tell you like the definition I found online for the difference between those two things. Story is what's happening in the game, with your character and his arc, his objective from start to end. Lore, on the other hand, is the world building, the backstory, all the other stuff. Everything that came before the beginning of the game. I'm only just past Radahn, but from what I'm getting, the story is you are a Tarnished. There is a prophecy that a Tarnished will take the crown and become Elden Lord. Here's the steps of how to do that. Go do that. Of course, you'll meet characters along the way and stuff. That's part of the story. But also, remember the game has 6 different endings, so different stories for different paths. Here's what I found when looking up the difference between story and lore. In quotes. Particularly in role-playing games, or any game that takes place in a made-up universe, the lore typically refers more to the backstory or history of either your character or the game world, while the story refers more to the current events of the game and the various exploits your character undergo. End quotes. And I think that's important to keep in mind when talking about what is and is not essential. Lore, as awesome as it is not essential. Story is. And FromSoft games are very well known for having minimalistic stories. They've always had minimalistic stories. There's not much to it. At their core, the FromSoft games are an objective and someone saying, go do that. For example, in Dark Souls it was, go ring the bells and link the flame. In this game it's, go kill the Shardbearers and become Elden Lord. That's really all there is for the story. There's a bit more to that, but there's nothing. That's the important stuff. That's the essential stuff. That's all you really need. The game does give you a lot more than that, but that's all that is essential. Now, one thing I also want to address is, speaking of story and giving you enough to be interested, I get that trailers are not an in-game thing, but I feel like I should mention them. It is safe to assume that someone, when looking into whether or not they want to play a game, they will probably watch the trailers. And if they care about the story in games, they will watch the story trailer, which gives you so much stuff to go off, but everything in that trailer is also in the game. You just don't know it from the get-go. You have to find it out later on from talking to NPCs and getting some cutscenes and doing some certain things. But nothing super important is hidden off the beaten path. And actually, you mentioned in, I think, your first video that you suddenly became interested in lore because of a VatiVidya video. And the VatiVidya video you pointed out was his breakdown of the story trailer. Not anything else, just the story trailer. he just basically broke down in simpler, more easy to understand words what was told to you in the story trailer. A trailer people are very likely to watch before playing the game. And I get that some people won't, but that stuff is still in the game. It's just not from the get-go. But the story trailer, I mean, trailers, are stuff that the developers kind of intend, or at least don't care, that before you even start the game. Because trailers are what you watch before the game is. And they come out before the game comes out. Everything I know... Okay, I put in a thing listing down everything I know about the story. I don't read item descriptions. I have not read a single item description except for the item descriptions for like what my weapon arts do. That's all I've done with item descriptions. I haven't read anything as far as lore. Here's basically a simple rundown of some of the stuff I know about the lore, partially from that trailer and partially from in-game stuff. The Elden Ring is broken. That ring governed the laws of the universe, including mortality. The demigods are supposed to be immortal, but the Black Blade assassins killed Godwyn the Golden by stealing the Rune of Death and shattered the Elden Rune, and now all those rules of the world are out of whack. Radon fought in the Shattering, learned gravity magic so he could ride his horse, held a festival to give himself an honorable death. Millennia is the reason Khalid exists. Scarlet Rot is her kind of thing. There's a couple other things I know, and I learned pretty much all that from stuff that's not all that off the beaten path. One of them is a cutscene right before the Radon fight. There's a lot of stuff I know that's not written down there. I just don't know them off the top of my head. That's told to you by an NPC in the Round Table Hold. Actually, there's 2 Round Table Hold NPCs that give you a ton of lore. The Spartan-looking guy leaning over the table, he tells you a little bit about every single ring bearer. I think all you need to do is beat Godric, and then he tells you about all of them. And the deathbed companion, Fia, the lady that hugs you. If you have your Baldekin's blessing still on you, and you go talk to her and accept the hug thing, she'll give you lore. If you do that after every, hour or so of playing the game, you'll get more and more lore, and eventually her quest line will progress, and she'll give you a thing, and you'll give that to someone else, and she'll leave the Round Table Hold. I'm not going to get more in-depth there, because that might be a bit spoilery, but I didn't need to go out of my way to find that, because that was basically just, I go talk to her for a bit, and she tells me she gives me this thing and says, give it to its owner, and its owner is also in the Round Table Hold. That's not out of the path at all. That's pretty blatantly there. Like, you're going to be visiting the Round Table Hold hundreds of times throughout your playthrough, most likely. And speaking of NPCs, NPCs are not bad storytelling. You kept saying NPCs are bad storytelling, and one thing you said is that they're bad storytelling because all they are is speech and text. And by that logic, I guess audiobooks are the worst form of storytelling in existence. Shadow the Conqueror, a book I thought was fantastic, must have been the worst story I've ever read because it was just speech and text. More importantly, what's a better option? You kept saying, oh, NPCs are a bad storytelling method, but you never gave an alternative. You never gave a better way to do it. And I, for one, can't really think of any that would work with the way this story is. You could put in more cutscenes, but it would basically just be the same thing. It'd just be, you go up and talk to this person, and they give you the dialogue they were going to give anyway, but maybe with some special fancy animations in a cutscene. That would be the only difference. It'll just be a slightly bit more in-depth, and that just seems pointless. I don't really see a reason of doing it in a way more than that. And yes, NPCs are not bad storytelling. Being speech and text is good. They're actually one of the best, most direct ways to get the story. And I don't know what you want more than that. I turned my thing again. The tortoise! You complained about the tortoise being off the path, being off the main path of this place. You go here. What's the main path? Well, you could go here, or you could go here. What's down this road? Oh, look. The tortoise is straight down this road, directly, basically 5 steps left of the main path. A main path you will in most cases, take. If you somehow miss this entire part of the map, I feel like that's entirely your fault. You said the tortoise was off the main path, but this feels entirely on the main path. I didn't know the tortoise existed. I found him naturally. I just ran up this path because I was like, oh, there's a big road here. There's a bunch of stuff here. I'm gonna go up this road and see if I can go up this way and maybe to this thing and up here and all that stuff. I wanted to get into this area. It was just natural progression of playing the game, and I found this. That's not some hidden off-the-path thing, and also, the stuff he gives you, the stuff he tells you, is not important. He gives you a little bit about Renala, but it's extra tidbits that are not essential in the slightest. And, okay, one thing also, a misconception. You mentioned the wall people were hitting like 30 times, 30, 50 times, the illusory wall. That is actually like a unintended thing, almost for certain. So, illusory walls, the way they work is kind of like they have a health thing, and when you hit them, they have a very minimalistic health, so almost any hit will kill them. They fade away in a similar way to larger enemies when you kill them. So have you noticed how larger enemies just, like, disintegrate when you kill them? That's kind of the same thing the doors do. And what happened with that wall is people think the wall was intended to be an illusory wall, but then they went back on that thought and just made it a normal wall. But instead of going through the effort of actually replacing the illusory wall with an actual wall, they just said, let's increase its health a lot. No one's going to sit there and hit it 50 times to break it. It doesn't matter. Also, that illusory wall doesn't really lead to anything important. I'm pretty sure it leads to an area you've probably already been in if you're on that side of the illusory wall. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it, like, saves you 5 minutes down a path. Who knows? But from what I've heard, there's nothing important behind that illusory wall, and no one's really found any others yet. It was just kind of a, hey, we don't want this to be an illusory wall anymore. Let's give it a lot of health. No one's going to hit it that long. I guess someone did. I'm actually want to sit for just a second and give, like, a little bit of respect to Miyazaki. I absolutely freaking love Dark Souls games, and Bloodborne and FromSoft. They're some of my favorite games of all time. There's tons of videos explaining all the great things they do, and here's just a little thing I wrote about some of the things I like that he does as a developer that I wish more people did. He said himself that he creates games and makes decisions on them based on what he thinks will be fun. He makes games that he himself would like to play, and I love that. So many big developers these days don't even play games themselves anymore. They don't make games based on what they think would be fun. They make them based on what they think would make them money. Now, this isn't always true, but it is way more common than it should be. I genuinely feel that if you're working in the entertainment field, the entertainment industry, and your focus has shifted so that literally anything has taken priority over being entertaining in the entertainment field, you should not be working in the entertainment field. I get making money and being successful is super important, but if you're someone like EA, you're not going to go bankrupt if your game doesn't, like, quadruple the amount of money you put into it. That's not going to happen. And so you don't need to make the decisions EA has been making, which have been almost entirely driven on making money. And as a result, their games have been worse. They've backtracked on a lot of it, but they keep making mistakes. Just think about what happened with Battlefront? Yeah, Battlefront 2. That game was bad when it came out. In every way, except for graphics and basic core mid-match gameplay. But the progression of your character and unlocking things and pretty much everything else about that game was awful when it came out. And the reason they made the decisions that led to those problems with the game was because they thought those decisions would make them more money. And I hate that. FromSoft never does anything like that. They make full, complete, well-fleshed-out games that the main goal of them is to be fun. And I absolutely love that. Now, next thing I'm going to do, this next part of the video, I'm I'm going to say we actually went through those blurbs a little bit faster than I thought we would, is I'm going to go through the beginning parts of the game, looking at all of the lore the game gets you at the start. All of the little tidbits, all of the stuff it tells you very quick, very easily, not off the beaten path at all. Very much the main things you're going to find, either within the first, 2 hours of playing, or on the main path. You just might not get there until much later. I'm not going to be going in any side things. We're not going to be doing a bunch of exploring. We're just going to go and see what the game tells you, blatantly, off the bat. There's one thing that could be missed. I've never seen anyone miss it, but I will address when we get to that I do see how someone could miss this thing existing, and it is a pretty important thing, and it would be kind of bad if you miss it. But I've not seen anyone miss it yet, and I stumbled across it randomly. I didn't, find it because I knew it was there the first time. I stumbled across it randomly, but yeah, we'll get to that. Did I just press continue instead of new character? Sorry, this is a waste of time. Oh, also, I think there's some lore in the loading screens. I haven't been reading them. Damn it. I'm trying to think what would be the best option for getting... Because one of the story things I'm planning on showing you, I have to be Godric for. Shit, that's going to take a while. I might just go back into my main account to show you that one. New game. I'm thinking... Astrologer's the magician, right? How do I show the stats? Show status. Mind. Intelligence. Yeah. I'm gonna start with Samurai. Because I just find... that's a playstyle I'm more at home with. So, yeah. Even though I'm mostly a strength build, the melee is what I'm talking about, and the bleed and the bow makes him a very strong choice. So, maybe getting past Godric won't be too hard with him. Now, it should play the first cutscene. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we learned the Elden Ring was shattered. I think that was said in the first line.
Other, whom grace would again bless.
Me. Woo.
A tarnished of no renown.
The other tarnished have great renown. I didn't know Gold Mask was a tarnished. I didn't watch this cutscene very.
Across the fall to the lands between.
Blatantly. Also, you said, oh, your character would already know a lot of stuff about the world.
Before the Elden Ring.
Maybe the story trailer was what your character was supposed to already know. Maybe this is supposed to be all your character knows.
The Elden Lord.
You kinda do just wake up in this room with a dead maiden, and, no real explanation. Who's to say they didn't do the amnesiac thing for your character, huh? Okay, but that cutscene basically said, Marika is missing. Her children took shards of the Elden Ring that were shattered. They fought to all become Elden Lord, but no one actually did become Elden Lord in that fight. Oh, right. Before Marika went missing, Godwyn was killed by the Black Knife Assassins, and yeah, because that war went on. The mad taint of the newfound power was them going mad with power and trying to get the Elden, this thing to become the Elden Lord. They said, oh, they fought. No lords actually came of it. I think only 2 people even survived it, which is Melina and Radahn. The other ones kind of all died. Or not, who knows, because they did mention Godric, and I know that snake head thing is later on in the game. So that was a... Oh, yeah. Marika's children all grabbed shards, which makes them the shard bearers. Duh. And then it went on to how no lord was risen from that, so all the Tarnished rose, and it said that one of the Tarnished will become Elden Lord. And it talked about Sir Gideon Ofnir, the guy leaning over the table in the Round Table Hold, and Horalu? I know Nefelilu. I don't know Horalu. Don't know about that one. Fia, the deathbed companion, the lady who hugs you, and a few other people. The Dung Eater, he's actually in my Round Table in the main world, in my main account right now. So there's that. Yeah, it goes on about that. Also, it showed, like, the graveyards of, like, tombstones with the open lids, and I just realized I've been seeing those all over the world, and that basically just told me that every single open tombstone had a Tarnished in it, and that Tarnished is now out going around doing stuff, which is interesting, because there's, like, so many of those graveyards throughout the game. But that's a lot of lore, just in that cutscene alone, and there's gonna be more. We're gonna get to that. I'm just gonna let this guy kill me. I'm not gonna bother trying to fight him. You missed. Hit me again. Thank you. And here's another cutscene with probably more lore. Ooh. Hello, Torrent.
Don't worry, Torrent. Fortune is on his side. We found him here, after all.
We're lucky.
One of his kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring.
The prophecy about Tarnished seeking the Elden Ring and maybe becoming Elden Lord.
It does violate the Golden Order.
Ooh, violating the Golden Order, which by name is fairly obviously some kind of law. Oh, I just realized I should have maybe taken one of the reward things. I don't think there's any lore down that tutorial tunnel, so I'm gonna skip that. Ah, yes, we're going to talk to this man up here. He's going to give us some lore. Some explanations for stuff. Because that's what he does. That's what a lot of people in this game do. And he has a quest line and a whole bunch of stuff going on, too. He's not just an exposition bot. Actually, that is also something. So this tells you to use the map. You can. It doesn't say the thing. The video I talked. One of the trailers was like a prep trailer for the game that gives you a lot of information on this and that.
Oh, yes.
Which is also not a bad thing to watch before playing the game.
Come to the lands
But it's less lore related.
Elden Ring? Of course you have. No shame in it. Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless. Without guidance, without the strength of runes, and without an invitation to the Round Table Hold, you are fated, it seems, to die in obscurity.
So, he told us that we are maidenless, which means we don't have the strength of runes, which is the ability to level up and become stronger. That one's fairly obvious. Without an invitation to the Round Table Hold, that one, later on, will become fairly obvious, is an invitation to go to the Round Table Hold, a very important place where you go to upgrade your weapons and talk to a lot of NPCs and get guidance for progressing through the game. There's a lot of lore in what this guy just said. All you have to do is listen to it.
Luckily for you, however, there is one shining ray of hope. Grace, the golden light that gives life to you, Tarnished.
The grace is why us Tarnished are alive.
Its golden rays, pointing in a particular direction at times. That is the guidance of grace, a path that a Tarnished must travel. Indeed, Grace's guidance holds the answers. It will lead you, Tarnished, to the path you are meant to follow, even if it leads you to your grave.
Okay, what that just said was the reason we are alive, why we are still walking around, why we live in death, and it is just the Tarnished that do that, from what I us to our objective. It leads us where we need to go on our journey to become Elden Lord. but that path will be dangerous.
River Castle's the home of the decrepit demigod crafted.
And now he just said, it will lead you to a place called Stormvale Castle, where you will find a demigod, a shard bearer, named Godric the Grafted.
On the cliff, where if you seek the Elden Ring, maidenless as you are, it's time you set up a castle.
Okay, now that's everything he says. Next. I'm gonna run past this guy. Don't got time for him. Just trying to go through the lore as fast as we can. The blatant, obvious, in-your-face lore that the game gives you. Thankfully, he doesn't chase you down on sight. He just kind of ignores you if you run past him. And don't go too close. I didn't notice there was a shiny here. It's just some runes, but still. I think this guy gives you some stuff. I'm gonna upgrade my sword. I don't have the runes to upgrade my sword, but I just picked up some runes. Perfect. What? Oh, I need another smithing stone. Damn it.
You're a tarnished. I can see it. And I can also see that you're not after my throat.
So apparently some of the tarnished are very aggressive.
I am Kale, purveyor of fine goods.
What do you got? Crafting kit might be useful, torch might be useful, but...
I am of a nomadic people, selling wares as I travel. The land has been tainted by madness since the shattering of the Elden Ring. It's only tarnished like yourself, who keep things from drying up entirely. Let's say you're a very welcome customer.
The shattering of the Elden Ring threw everything into chaos and madness, and there are apparently merchants like here who don't like